Why the heck is Bitcoin rallying in the midst of a banking crisis and potentially walking into a recession? Yes, Bitcoin is absolutely going bonkers. And I have an idea as to why. We're going to talk about it in this video because it's something that you can pay attention to. This is the chart of Bitcoin's performance. You can see that we bottomed at about 15,461, only to now sit at about 28,300 in less than 5 months. 4 months and about 28 days ago, we hit bottom. And now we're basically, well, I should say nearly double where we were. Had you perfectly timed the market and gotten in at the bottom, right now you would be up 83% on your Bitcoin. But what we're more interested in is what's going to happen to Bitcoin next. First, from a TA point of view, it is fantastic to see that the massive downtrend we've had appears to be broken. We can go to the weekly chart to see this downtrend substantially better. Well, we have to get out of the day chart to see it. And we could see that downtrend right here. It's not a perfect downtrend, but the downtrend has clearly been broken. We are on an uptrend from hitting bottom here. And when we look at the fibs, the fib retracement lines, we actually have an important number that we're sitting at right now. And that's because the fib retracement next level, about a 23% level, is right here. We're trading right above it right now at about 28,200. Right now, by being at 28,300, we're actually sitting on that retracement. Now, this candle just began, so we'll see if it actually holds up. But if this candle can hold up and we can close above 28.2, maybe it's a sign that that bottom 23% for Bitcoin is over. Now, why is this happening? Is it potentially because now there are discussions underway to basically create a blockchain land registry in Ukraine? Let's think about that. A land registry is a database that tracks the ownership of and transfer rights of land. It's typically maintained by a government agency, but Ukraine is deemed to be, at least according to the international community and surveys, not according to me, okay? Ukraine is deemed to be the most, quote, corrupt country in Europe. It may also be the most destroyed country, so maybe, one came before the other, but who knows? The point is, blockchain technology, obviously being a distributed ledger system that allows for the secure and transparent transparent transactions without the need for a government or banks, could potentially actually be maintained in a decentralized manner without the odds of Putin just showing up and throwing up little children's play toys and pretending like everything's fine. I say that because that's literally what he just did. He just visited the besieged city of Mariupol, which is essentially in ruins. And what they did was they set up some little play structures, and then they paraded him around those play structures to make it seem like, yes, children enjoy living in a ruined city, while he looked at architectural renderings for the rebuilding of Mariupol. Apparently, Putin took a helicopter in and then drove around in a car with his deputy prime minister. But anyway, some people are saying, oh, it's news like this that's actually leading to excitement over Bitcoin. I don't think so. Actually, in my opinion, the recovery that we're seeing has everything to do with simply an algorithm. Yeah, and it's not a very difficult algorithm to look at. All you have to do is look at the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, and when it goes up, Bitcoin tends to go up. When it goes down, Bitcoin tends to go down. I think this is mostly algorithmic. Take a look. This is the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. And as soon as we realized that the Fed's balance sheet, thanks in part due to the banking crisis, started ticking up again, which basically is what I call transitory QE, all of a sudden Bitcoin traders and algos are having a field day and Bitcoin's going up. Now, will it last? We'll see, because technically it's transitory QE that's bailing out the banks. Now, I'll briefly explain that, since some people are going to freak out for me saying, I see all the comments already. The Fed can't print money. This isn't QE, man. This is just a loan. It's very, very simple. Very, very simple. The reason I call it transitory QE is because when the Fed bails out banks and increases access to liquidity swaps, basically dollars, when you increase access to dollars, you could only increase access to dollars by having more dollars. So here's the cool thing that J-POW can do. J-POW can say, hey, this is my balance sheet, okay? Assets and liabilities, all right? This is my balance sheet. It's gonna balance. Yes, I know I'm not putting equity in here. Don't worry about that right now. Assets. If J-POW says, I have $100 in assets and $100 in cash, well, then maybe the Fed has debt of $100. Well, now, if J-POW gets a call from, a bank, and they're like, yo, we need some dollars, can we borrow some? J-POW might be like, well, we don't have any more dollars to give you, but if we just happen to add a zero over here, this will show that we just basically created money out of thin air to balance the balance sheet. We'll just add a zero to our cash position over here, and we basically just digitally created money. Hey, now we have an extra $900 that we could send you. Hey, but you need to pay that back. My goal isn't to actually permanently expand the money supply, so when you pay that $900 back, I could go back to my QT, quantitative tightening. But in the meantime, in a transitory way, they have now given the banking system cashola. Cashola means balance sheet go up, as in total assets go up. The amount of money the Fed has created goes up. When that goes up, the algos go, ooh, ding, 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 ding. Last time this happened during the stimulus era, Bitcoin went to the moon. And it kind of makes sense. Bitcoin was supposed to be an inflation hedge. That's probably highly debatable, especially since it mostly trades along with tech and risk assets. But that's okay. We know it has properties that make it resistant to inflation in the long term. Maybe once it stabilizes, it's less of a trading tool because of, the fact that it has a finite supply. But this isn't to talk about the basics of Bitcoin. It's simply to say, why Bitcoin up during panic? Well, probably because QE up. And when QE up, even if that's transitory, Bitcoin tend to go up. Kind of simple, but now technically it's supposed to be transitory. So technically the Fed's supposed to pay that down again. Nobody's sure if that is going to end up happening, and it depends on the depth of the recession and the banking crisis. Now, what's actually interesting is most people say because bank credit standards will tighten, the biggest damage from a recession will actually end up being in company earnings. But what's fascinating about that is there are no earnings for Bitcoin. So, is it possible Bitcoin could actually decouple from the stock market? Yes, it is possible. Because if we go into a QE period while corporations end up getting reamed in earnings, maybe it's possible that Bitcoin escapes. However, there's a counter argument to this. It's the Goldman Sachs earnings or argument that generally stocks bottom about 6 to 9 months before earnings bottom. So maybe they could actually, you could see those massive earnings hits, but you don't actually hit new bottoms in stocks because a bottom in earnings usually occurs 6 to 9 months after a bottom in the stock prices. So it's interesting. But in case you're wondering why Bitcoin up, my opinion is very clear. It is simply algorithmic trading that sees QE up, push Bitcoin, invest in buy Bitcoin. I think there are plenty of institutional programs that make these sorts of trades. on a regular basis. And the cool thing is you can actually operate them 24/7. You don't just have to wait for the closing and opening bells, right? Or the opening and closing bells, you should say it that way. Anyway, if you want more of my perspectives, make sure to check out the programs on Building Your Wealth link down below. We've got a coupon expiring on the 22nd. That is the FOMC day, 11:59 p.m. Prices will be going up. You get a price guarantee, always going forward, making sure you get the best price. You get lifetime access to all the member live streams. Today, we will be analyzing Enphase in detail because finally it's getting closer to my price target. My price target for Enphase has been gloriously waiting for it to get closer to 164, and it's almost there. We got to talk about it.